Euphoria. This is a show that I've been meaning to check out for a little bit. I haven't done it because basically I knew this show dealt with a lot of like sex and nudity and things like that. And while I'm not necessarily comfortable with those sort of things, they aren't my preferred thing. They're just not who I am as a person, so it doesn't really reflect on me. However, I feel like a lot of that stuff was over dramatized to me, but we'll get into that stuff in a minute. I also am not a fan of Sydney Sweeney. Like, I think she's actually a talented actress, and when I see her in movies, because I do watch her stuff sometimes, I think she's good. But she is you know, she seems like she's got some issues going on. If that jeans ad was anything, and I know people should move on from that, yada yada. But it's just like, come on, I don't really like watching her and stuff. Also, Zendaya, I think she's a decent actress, but her being in like an HBO drama did feel like, hmm. I also I feel like there are a lot of like Disney Channel stars that try to kind of go into projects like this with lots of sex and nudity, and it feels not great because you're like, I watched them as a child, and now I'm seeing them in all these different things, and it's like they're not a child, but there is a part of it that makes me a little bit uncomfortable. But I guess Zendaya works a lot better in a show like this than some of the other ones. But anyways, we'll get into that. But yeah, I decided, you know what, fuck it, the show's ending. It's time to watch it. So I actually surprisingly really enjoyed this show. I'm reviewing the seasons 1 and 2 here, by the way, because there's no point in splitting up the review because the show literally comes out in a few weeks. So, but I do think this show is pretty good. What I like about this show is that at first you're a little bit thrown off by the show. Characters seem a little bit unlikable in the first few episodes, and as the show goes on, you grow to understand them a lot and their struggles. And there's definitely like moments of stress and tension that made me uncomfortable. One of the highlight episodes of the series that really showed off Zendaya's acting range is when her mom finds out about the drugs she's been doing. She hides them, and she goes on a spur, like just trying to find anything to get that feeling again, and just all kinds of things like that. I do think this show was over dramatized by like the sex and the nudity. I'm like, come on, I've seen movies with more. And I think it's just shocking because Zendaya's in it. But I think this show really had a lot of layers to everything going on, and it was really well performed, well acted stuff. And there's characters that you really like. There's lots. At first, when I started watching this show, and I'm like, this seems a little cliche. Like I've seen stories like this before, but then when you actually get into like some of the trans character, there's like a trans character in the show, and her story is unlike anything ever really seen before. Certain things like that. So I do think the show does feel a little bit familiar to other things I've seen before, but it is able to kind of branch out and be its own thing. I think this is not one of HBO's like best shows, but it is one that I really enjoyed, and I'm curious to see how it all kind of ends. I've heard the first episode did not get great reviews the next season, but we'll see. But I'm excited to check it out, and I will be reviewing the whole season after it finishes. So I usually review shows week to week, but I don't do that anymore. So I'm excited to talk about that when the season wraps up. Let me know your thoughts.